Hello and welcome to 5-Minute Math. Today we are looking at the Algebra 1 concept of polynomials, specifically how we can divide them, and we'll do it in 5 minutes or less. So we'll start with something pretty simple here, and this is actually dividing a binomial. Right? So this is a two-term expression that involves variables and constants, and this is a monomial. So that's pretty simple. It's just going to be a single term right there. And so let's look at it like this, right? 3x squared minus 9 over 3. So we've got two different ways that we could attack this here. This is pretty simple. One, we could split the terms, right? So using our distributive property, what we can do is we can say, you know what? This is the same as 3x squared over 3 minus, so we're going to keep that minus symbol, 9 over 3. So we're just going to divide that into two different terms there, and then divide each one separately. And as you can see here, right, those two are going to cancel out. We're going to get an x squared minus 9 over 3 is 3. Another way, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, is if we take that 3x squared minus 9, and we can look to see, is there anything we can factor out of the numerator, right? So if you can factor something out, in this case, right, I can't factor out an x or an x squared, but I can factor out, look at the numbers there, a 3 and a 9. I can factor out a 3. So I can say, you know what, I'm going to factor out that 3. That's going to leave an x squared. That's going to leave a minus 3 over 3. That's beautiful. It just cancels itself out. That becomes x squared minus 3 over 1, or simply x squared minus 3. Now those are the simple kinds. What happens if you have to divide by a binomial? So what if it looks a little bit more like this? So I've got a trinomial up here. It's got 3 terms divided by a binomial. This one's not as easy. We're not going to necessarily split it. There are a few different methods, but one that we should have learned back in 4th grade is simply long division, right? So this x minus 3, right, that's going to be your divisor. So let's think x minus 3, right? And then you've got your dividend, 4x squared minus 10x minus 6, right? So we can take our fraction, we could turn it into a long division. What we're thinking about here is we're just thinking about, all right, x minus 3, right? We need to go ahead and divide that into, let's look at our first two terms right there. But we're just thinking about really that x. I'm wanting to find how many times that x can go into the 4x squared, and I'm wanting to make it to where it cancels itself out, right? So if I multiply this by 4x right there, right? Then watch what happens. If I multiply that 4x by the x minus 3, what I'm going to end up getting is that 4x squared, which is what I'm wanting. I'm going to get minus 12x. Okay, so let's put that down here. 4x squared minus 12x. Now when we do long division, remember we end up subtracting them, right? So that ends up flipping both of the terms here. So that's going to be a minus 4x. That ends up making that a positive, and then we just subtract like normal. So what I get is what I wanted. 4x squared minus 4x squared. So that's gone. So I got a 10x minus 10x plus 12x. So that's going to be 2x, bring that down, minus 6. Okay, so what am I going to need to do to get the x into the 2x? Well, I just need to do a 2, right? So we're going to say, but it's going to be a positive 2. To get x into 2x, we need a positive 2. Right, so that's going to be a 2x minus 3, so that's going to be 2x minus 6. Aha, so that's exactly what I need, right? And then we end up flipping the signs because we're subtracting. So that ends up being no remainder. So that's exactly what I'm wanting. Now, let's double check. Let's do x minus 3. And let's do 4x plus 2. We'll just FOIL this out. So our first is going to be 4x squared. Our outer is going to be a plus 2x. Our inner is going to be a minus 12x. And our last is going to be a minus 6. So it's going to be 4x squared minus 10x minus 6, which is what we started with. That's how we can divide polynomials.